Yeah.
Hey, we're live. Look at that. Second time's
fantastic.
Second time's the charm. So this is Sacktown Talk Live. Well, we're starting out a new year. Actually, we're almost to the end of the first quarter of the new year, 2025, and shaping up to be super busy. We've already had several shows, and we're lining up a lot more here. So it's going to be busy here in the studio. It's going to warm it up a little bit. We've got a lot of projects going on for the radio station and the television side of things. So we've got all that going. But more importantly, in the studio today, we have Cory Ortiz, who is the new director of AVTEC for the state. It's actually under the Labor Department, right? Department of Labor?
Department of Labor and Workforce Development.
Yeah. And as we were talking, we were getting warmed up, so to speak, before we got this rolling. You told me something I didn't know, which is that you're the director of the AVTEC division.
So technically, my title is division director of the for AVTEC. It's a part of the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and so AVTEC is a division within the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. So I'm the head of that division.
Right, and AVTEC used to have some other facilities and offerings as far as courses and education and training goes beyond Seward. So is that still going on, or is it just pretty much Seward centric these days?
Once upon a time, AVTEC operated some health science training out of Anchorage, but that went away, I think, over 10 years ago now at this point.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been quite some time. So all of our training right now takes place here in Seward.
Right. So let's see here. I remember Fred Esposito. He was the longtime director of AVTEC, and then we had some turnover, and I lost track. Yeah, unless I write down names. But your predecessor was
Kathy Lecomte, Director Lecomte.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And you both come out of Southeast, right?
Yes, she came out of Ketchikan, and I'm coming out of Juneau.
Okay, so we're getting people coming in. You see the Fallout, the new version of I guess it's on Netflix.
I have not. I'm not much of a television watcher.
There's this vault where all the management comes from. So it's kind of just that when you said you came out of Southeast and Kathy came out of Southeast, just harken back to that for people who are in the know on that one. And then what was your background? Was it in managing educational institutions or working at them or being involved?
So I really appreciate that question. I started my career off as a K-12 CTE teacher. So I started life off as a junior high shop teacher. So I taught wood shop, robotics, engineering, computer-aided drafting, transitioned into higher education where I taught at a university teaching some of those same classes. I taught classes for aerospace mechanics, folks who were working on their AMP, folks who wanted to become professional pilots. And I did that through graduate school. I transitioned into CTE coordinating for a school district where I was then managing and coordinating a lot of work-based learning activities and CTE offerings. And then I got sucked back into post-secondary education where I was a professor again. And that was actually down south. I'm originally from the Utah area. My wife's family's from Alaska. And the first time I ever visited my wife's family up in Alaska, I said to my wife, why are we not living here? We need to get away. We need to find a way to move to Alaska.
I was about to say something about Utah, but Utah's pretty. There's parts of it that are pretty. Yeah.
Utah's a gorgeous place, but there's nothing quite like Alaska. Yeah. And the other thing about Alaska that I really like is it's quieter up here. There's fewer people. I'm an outdoors person, and I like to go travel and to be out into the woods and not see a million people.
Yeah, I feel like you have it to yourself. Yeah, sometimes.
Lots of trails around here.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, yes! I'm so excited for the summertime. And so what ended up happening as I transitioned out of being a post-secondary faculty as a professor, I was looking for any and all work who would hire me in Alaska. And my passion, everything I've ever studied, my bachelor's through my doctorate, it's all in career and technical education. So I really can only teach CTE or administer CTE. And so the job that stuck was the Dean of Career Education out of UAS. And so it came from Juneau. And so I spent some time down in Juneau doing program administration for CTE programs. And then as Director Lecomte was retiring out of AVTEC, I was approached with this opportunity of, AVTEC is an institution looking for a new director, and working at a technical college has been a dream of mine since I started working in K-12 as a CTE coordinator, and I got to see how beneficial and valuable the technical college system is, and how it can play and work really well within the broader education system for students who wanted to study some sort of technical trade. And so I jumped at that opportunity. AVTEC is really truly a dream job for me, and so that's a bit about where I came from as far as my academic training, my professional background. And so all I've ever known is technical education, and I've been able to work through the technical college system, K-12, university, and I've been loving AVTEC since I started in January.
Great. Well, welcome to our community. I'm going to throw a couple curveballs at you. I've got a couple in mind. One is, how about that windmill?
No, I wish I knew more about that, being the new director.
Right.
I really don't know too much about the windmill.
Okay.
I see it when I drive into town, but I haven't cracked yet. I don't know too much about it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to stay out of Howard Stern territory too.
Do you have any classes on heat pump and education, or is any of that in the works?
What is that? So refrigeration?
I know that's a part of in the refrigeration program. They do touch a little bit on heat pumps. When I've walked through and toured the facilities down there, you'll see heat pump apparatus around. I don't know to what degree students get into with them, but I do know that at least to some degree, students are exposed to that technology. And
what new classes? They have a couple new classes. I was excited about the what are the new classes? There was one that I went.
So the newest program we have that's a long-term training program is a program called Industrial Machine and Maintenance. It's a really pretty neat program where students get to be exposed to manual machining, CNC machining, computer-aided drafting.
Being a machinist, yes, that's the one I was,
And a part of the focus of that program is to be able to repair things. And so an example would be, at AVTEC, actually, we had a printer that went down, and it was just this little plastic part. And the plastic part to replace, maybe you couldn't find a replacement because the printer's out of production or they don't sell it. And so like the alternative would be to scrap the printer and buy a new expensive machine, or take the plastic part over to the industrial machine and maintenance students, and they took some dial calipers and some micrometers and took some measurements, and they drew it up in CAD, and then they 3D printed it, and then they fixed it back to the machine and saw if it would fit or not. And in this case, they had to go through one small design change to tweak a couple of dimensions, took it back to the 3D printer, and now the printer's back in production. And so that's a really cool, really neat program in that when you have these facilities up in the slope, or even here in town, the Sea Life Center, when they're working and rebuilding a pump and a part goes down on them, and the alternative is to buy the new part from wherever it happens to be down
if
south,
you can get it,
if you can get the part, versus do you have somebody who has the skill set to take that part and almost reverse engineer it, take it back to then a CNC machine or a manual machine and create a new one. And so that's our newest program. I think this is the second cohort of students we've had through it, and so it's going pretty well. I would encourage you, if you've never taken a look, I'd be more than happy to arrange a tour and take you through, and so you can see what the machines look like and see what the students are working on as far as the hands-on skills that the students are developing.
That would be nice.
So as far as it's just a little expansion on what you were talking about there with the CNC machining and the 3D printing, those are two separate machines.
Yes.
So CNC is more like milling and.
The CNC stands for computer numerical control.
Oh, okay.
And so that's more where you take the computer-aided drafting software, you draw something up, and then you basically create some sort of computer code that corresponds to a big machine that will then take the component and machine it for you.
Yeah, right.
So it's actually the combination between the manual machining, the computer skills, the CAD work, where now you have the computer doing the machine work for you.
So as far as the computer work, you go through that, you get your design down, then you take it to a machine which will cut it and otherwise form it.
Correct. Yep.
So you have a machine that cuts and lathes and does all that stuff like a robot.
Yep, that's correct. And the more expensive machines will basically kick out a fully finished part for you, and then all that's left is to take it through quality and take some measurements, and if it works, then you can go put it in production.
So there's a strong component of robotics in that.
Not so much in that, but the way the CNC machines are built, it's more of
It's a black box.
It's a bit of a black box. It's a good way to describe it. The machine is really it looks like a mill, and so the machine will even go through and like change out print or the
What
cutting
material
heads.
does it print out? Is it the plastic, or does it print out, or can you do this in steel?
So a
Like-
3D printer would be plastic.
Okay.
But for the most part, all consumer grade 3D printers, they're mostly plastic. You can get some
Okay.
that have like fiber reinforcement. Ours is just this more basic level plastic 3D printer. The CNC, it can do machining for like steel, aluminum.
Yeah, that's
For the
what I
most part, a lot of student projects tend to be on softer metals like aluminum because it's really forgiving. It's hard to
Oh.
break things really quickly with aluminum compared to like the stainless steel.
I was thinking like making forklift parts and things like that.
Yeah, bicycle parts. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly bicycle parts will go out of production, and you can't get your bike fixed.
Yeah, yes.
I have a bike sitting around it just for want of a part, a
And the
small
one that
little
was
part.
working, somebody stole.
Yeah, well, yeah, bike. You got to watch your bike around here. That's a tip for AVTEC students. Lock your bike up.
Do you have a bike rack there?
I don't know.
That would be a good thing
I-
to get to encourage.
They should
people
CNC one.
bicycling.
I
They
because
should make one.
because of having started in the winter time, I haven't paid too much attention actually. That's
Oh, they
something I
got
should
fitted
look
tires.
at. Yes, that's a good point.
But a bike rack would be good for encouraging people to bike
Yeah.
around.
Yes.
So speaking of students, we get an influx of students every 3 times a year,
Twice a year.
twice a year. Okay. And so there's a like at the beginning of the year, and then like September maybe.
December would be the next training term, and so
Okay.
we operate mostly right now on an academic schedule where students show up in August, and depending on the length of the training program, if it's a half year, the students would train from August till December, graduate in December. If it's a full year program, they train from August through May, and then graduate in May. And so we also have some programs that start in January. And so those programs that start in January, new students will be coming to AVTEC. And I wish I could tell you what those programs are off the top of my head, but I do not know the spring start versus the fall start.
They do have an awesome website with all the
Yes.
start
Yes,
dates.
they do.
Very, very informative on every class, the expense of it, the length of it, what you'll learn, what you need.
And
You guys have an awesome website.
and a couple of stats that are not on the website that I want to share. If you look at our programs, we have to track for accreditation purposes our graduation rate and our job placement rate.
I was going to ask about that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So our graduation rate, we're above 90%, and
Cool.
our job placement rate is also above 90%. And so that is amazing in that when a student comes to study at AVTEC and they do the training that they're doing, if they want a job in that field, they basically have a job in that field. The students that tend to not get placed are students that after they do the training, they realize that maybe I don't like this line of work. And
You know, and that's
pivot
okay
somewhere
because that
else.
skill they'll use later on.
oh, absolutely.
It was
Yep.
not wasted time.
Yes. And the fact that it's a shorter term training, it's not a full 4-year worth of academic training. If you go through a semester or a year-long training program and you recognize that you maybe don't like that type of
And
discipline or
it's not a
field,
$40,000 college.
Yeah.
What is that? Education loan or?
correct.
Yeah.
And so, and then the other nice thing about that is the skill sets that students, if they go through the program and they recognize they don't like this maybe to work in industry, all of the skills could be leveraged in their own life as far as if they go through the construction program and realize they don't want to work in construction, knowing how to build and frame a shop or a tiny home is a very valuable skill if you ever wanted to build a shed. If you went through the diesel program and you realized maybe you didn't want to work in the diesel engines, knowing how engines work, but you have a boat, then that
Yep.
skill set will still be a very
need to
valuable
yeah.
skill set.
Like I took the office occupations and I still use that. I took it and then I went commercial fishing, but yeah,
Marine office.
but I do use it a lot. I learned everything I should have been using in high school if I'd have been paying attention. But the office occupation is a good class to take if you're not sure what you want to do and you want to learn. Yeah, or actually any of the maintenance classes, anything in there is they're nice, quick classes.
And we do find quite a few people who they want to take the classes because they have the personal interest to work on something at home. And
Yeah, my friend took plumbing. Yeah.
Yep. I'm a firm believer that like I always want to be studying. I always want to be learning and expanding my own knowledge and skill set. And so I love the work that we do because it's so hands-on and applied. And I grew up in a family where my father was a miner, my mom was a barber, and my dad working in the mines. He was a very mechanically inclined individual. So I grew up watching him work with his hands on just about everything, whether it's the house or the cars. I grew up working on vehicles, and so I love working with your hands. It's a big part of my educational philosophy, in that I think the more we can involve students within their education, usually with their hands in real life meaningful projects, the more the learning sticks in their head.
Yeah, both my stepdad and my dad had very hands-on jobs and could fix or repair anything. May not be up to code or look right, but it worked. And but what I like to see now is there's more and more girls in the classes.
Yes. We are working. There's a couple of grant opportunities that AVTEC is looking at applying for through the state of Alaska. One is called a non-traditional occupations grant, and that's a grant that we used to have down in Southeast with UAS, and that's a grant that I can't advertise this out yet because we don't have the money. We haven't been awarded the grant, but if we are awarded the grant, what the grant can be used for is paying for what are considered non-traditional occupations. So in the case of the federal government, the way they define that is a certain percentage of the people who work in that profession being female or male. And so if it's a male-dominated,
like a welder for
correct,
female,
yes. Yeah. So if a male-dominated field, a non-traditional occupation would be a woman in that field. And in the world of nursing, a man being a nurse might apply in that same context. But if we get that grant, we'll have some scholarship money, and we'll be able to pay for women to go through our programs. And so we're crossing our fingers that we get that grant. And if we do, that's something that we'll be able to message out and support getting more girls and women excited.
Well, quite often I wish I would have took something in auto mechanics instead of office occupation, because things are always breaking.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're set on auto mechanics for Seward right now. We have like 6 different places that work on vehicles. So that's one thing that we're not lacking. That's good.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble by saying the things we need, because then the people that are doing them will up there get kicked. So let's talk about the students a little bit more. So students come, students go. Where do they come from? And where are you recruiting at certain areas of the state, or obviously they come from when you're trying to get the word out that these programs exist, where does that word go out to, and kind of what's the rotation as far as you can see?
I love that question. And so right now, the bulk of our students do come from South Central or Matsu on the road system. Mm-hmm. I am somebody who, the way I look at AVTEC, we are a statewide serving institution. And so I want to get our reach statewide. I want students to have access to our programs from the North Slope down to Metlakatla. And so we do get students from every region of the state of Alaska, and some regions we get more representation than others. And we do a lot of recruitment and outreach efforts really across the state. We had one of our admissions folks that they flew out to Western Alaska for, I think it was some sort of career fair or job fair. I'm not totally sure on what the event was, but it was a pretty amazing event for them to fly out to the villages and talk about how great AVTEC is. It's one of my goals to really look at and see who are our students, and are we serving Alaska equitably, as far as do students in the remote regions of Alaska have access to AVTEC?
I can testify that they do come from all over the state, because quite often they end up on my doorstep running a U-Haul. Yeah. And so I get a kick out of them. They're coming from Fairbanks or some little bitty village, and they just want to go to Anchorage. And some of them have their kids. So you have housing for families?
Yeah. So I was going to ask about the student experience too. Once they arrive here, what can they expect? What kind of facilities, what kind of support do you offer, and what do you kind of your first glance, or just being here since January? How do you feel about Seward as a community for this particular institution and the students?
I have loved every second of being in Seward. I'm somebody who I grew up spending a lot of time in the Puget Sound. I have family in the San Juans, and so I got a love for the ocean there. It's kind of interesting when I told my mom, and I'm moving to Alaska. She was a little surprised, but she shouldn't have been, because I grew up saying to my mom, I want to move up north. Like, I want to be where the ocean is. One thing that's really been fun is how there's a lot to do in Seward. Seward is an active community. Like the Polar Bear Plunge was something I signed up for. That was the end of my first week. I didn't quite raise enough money to jump in, but my goal is to raise enough money to jump in
How much
next
do you have
year.
to get to jump in?
$1,000, and I think I was $400 shy of it. And so, but then after that experience, I actually have some people now at AVTEC who we'll have an AVTEC team next year. I'm planning to hold them accountable to that.
Oh,
A
good.
statement of, if the director jumps in, then I'll also jump in as a team. We have a pretty amazing student services division too within our organization. So we have a nice student services center where we have an AVTEC gym, we have a ceramic studio, we have a lot of student life activities that are going on a consistent basis.
For the kids too. I remember because I used to take my kid to the rock wall, and there would be, I was at Valet, so there'd be AVTEC kids they would just all come over because they'd see,
And when I did my undergrad, one of the things that I really like, I went to Utah State University, and it's in the the foothills of the Wasatch Mountains, and I spent a lot of time out in the woods, camping, hiking, those type of things. And so the resources at the institution, we have a lot of things to help the students within their academics. And then during the winter time, if a student wanted to go make something in the ceramic studio, that's available. The rock wall, the gym. And then you also have the amazingness that is Resurrection Bay and Seward, and all of the hiking and all of that. That's just right here in our backyard. And so I think AVTEC, as far as what we offer students, is a pretty amazing facility as far as the extra student support services that we provide. If I was a student again, I like AVTEC would be somewhere I'd want to go in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it turns into a little community. I noticed that they even get like their own basketball team going.
I don't know much about the basketball team, but that wouldn't surprise me if there were things like that were happening within the student groups.
So you have the dorms, you have some other more family oriented housing, and then so what's kind of the ratio between living on campus, quote unquote, and living out in the community, and how do you support all that?
I think the bulk of students, and I wish I had the number offhand.
Yeah.
I think something like over 90% of our students live on campus. Something interesting that I did not mention when you were asking about who are students, something that we've noticed over the last probably 5 to 7 years is our demographic trend. We're trending younger and younger. So our demographics used to be quite a bit older, more students with families. Now we're seeing more students right out of high school, maybe a little bit older than that. So 18 to 24, that's a bigger population than what it used to be. And so our family dorms right now, I don't actually believe we have students in them at all. I don't think we have any needs to have students in those facilities at this current moment. So they're all living in the more traditional dorm housing right now. But we have the family housing still available if a student needed to access that. It's just interesting because
it's an interesting fact. Yeah,
as you track demographic trends,
and then you have your extensive marine. So that is a lot of people of all ages, because you have to keep going to get license renewed, or it's a tax write-off and you're a commercial fisherman, so you want to get do something in the winter and be educated and get better pay.
The maritime program, and most of those classes are short classes. I think all of them are short class courses. In fact, I think the longest might be like 4-ish weeks in length. And so a lot of students who do the maritime programs, they're only in Seward for a short period of time. And so they come in and they really just hit the books hard, and they work on and focus on that class to get that credential, and then get in, get out.
They're short ones, yeah. And the drill conductor class, that's a real good one. And that's free to commercial fishermen. That's a safety thing. And I don't care how long you've been on a boat, you could take that class and learn something.
So what are all the programs you've got? You've got diesel, we got
diesel heavy duty.
Yeah.
We have welding. We have industrial electricity. We have plumbing and heating, refrigeration, culinary. I knew you were going to ask this question, and I actually meant to bring my cheat sheet.
Did you cover plumbing already?
We have plumbing,
like office,
and building maintenance, and office occupations.
Office occupations, IT. We have construction. We have maritime.
And the maritime is
I think
extensive.
I think that's pretty close.
Is there more than one electric class? There's different
plumbing.
Different.
No.
We have 10 programs right now that are approved through our accrediting body for our long-term training programs.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And they're all on your website too, if anybody wants to really see what we're babbling about.
So have you found program development ideas while you've been working on the existing curriculum? You got some ideas of where you want to take things, or?
So one thing that is an important goal of mine, in Alaska, we have a lot of training pathways for students, but a lot of our training pathways are actually full, and they're full with a wait list. And what we're doing is we're having to turn students away, which that means then the student, if AVTEC is full, if the UA system is full, where do they go for training? It might be down south. And if they go down south, they might not come back to Alaska. And I want to do everything we can that if a student wants to do training, and especially the really high demand areas, that we find ways to increase our training capacity. Mm-hmm. And so we have 3 programs that filled the capacity for fall 2025. So this upcoming August, they filled within the month of February. And that means then we have a wait list already for classes that, won't start for another 6 months. And when I'm looking at the training numbers, I want to try to find more ways to increase our student throughput without compromising the rigor of the programs. I want to support those students who want to come into our programs and access the training without telling them, sorry, but we have an 18-month wait list, or however it may be. And so an example, our industrial electricity program, we sent out conditional acceptance letters to students. And then 2.5 hours later, we had enough students call and pay half their tuition, securing their spot. Wow. That the program was full within 2.5 hours.
Holy cow.
And so that particular program, to me, that's a call to action of how can AVTEC try to find a way to increase our training capacity, so we don't have to tell all the other students, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. Like, you got to go find some other training elsewhere.
Do Alaska residents have priority?
I don't know if we track non-resident or residents. That's a fantastic question for me to.
I know people that literally come up from lower 48 for the Marine thing, Marine especially.
Yes, I definitely believe that. There's not that many Marine training opportunities across the Pacific.
Well, there's a good one in Astoria, but we're like top in the nation, I think.
We have
one of them.
Pretty darn good program. Us in Ketchikan in Alaska.
So do you think there's some capacity here to build the throughput, so to speak, of without compromising, like you said, the quality of the education? Or are you thinking about that maybe you need to expand the physical campus to include more people, or maybe you have if you were going to build the perfect beast, how would you go about it? Maybe it's a little early to answer that question, right?
I love that question. I have a whole bunch of thoughts in my head, ideas that I
don't get in trouble now.
Yeah, right. I don't know how they will look at AVTEC, or if they would look at AVTEC. The neat thing about AVTEC, as far as I'm aware, we are a one-of-a-kind institution across the country. I'm not familiar of any other residential technical college that's a part of a state division. And so we have some really interesting challenges that make it a little unique, I guess, when it comes to looking at like solutions that are implemented down south that are effective. I think a part of what we are looking to do is, now we're asking the question of, are class caps, are those class caps, can they be adjusted a little bit? Is there some movement there where we can accept a few more students without having undue effects to the student learning and or the equipment or facilities? And so some of the class caps are relics of a COVID era when we were trying to do more social distancing. But then it's also that balance of, if you accept more students in, you have to have more resources for the programs to operate. And so for the diesel program, we went from 10 students to 12 students. And the 12 students is a little bit more manageable compared to if you look at the other numbers across the state of Alaska. But then that also brings the question of, do we have enough resources for those 12 students? We need to procure a couple more engines. And so some of the really easy, low level ideas are just looking at basic numbers and like, are we able to expand our programs without doing anything totally creative and outlandish yet, by just increasing our class cap? Then there are other ideas too, that if you give me a year, I'll share more about, because I'm hoping I can develop them a little bit more and see what or how they
do
could
an interview in a year.
Hey,
see what's up. Yeah.
Well,
I have to leave something, so people want to.
Yeah, a teaser. Yeah, you bet. Well, I'll come over with my pad and my pencil and my visor and sit down here in a little bit, and we'll go through, like I said, the second interview. But so the community is aware of AVTEC, is proud of AVTEC, and wants to help support AVTEC. And I know realize it's January, but we've got our legislators. You say you need a couple engines. Sometimes things are hard to get done in the state system. What can the community do to kind of help AVTEC
Love that
prosper
question. I'll
and
say it this time.
Yes, thank you for that question.
and
So-
expand even.
So something that I'm trying to figure out. So everyone about the cool thing about AVTEC, it doesn't matter where I've gone. People they shout its praises. My wife's family, none of them went to AVTEC, but they were all when I told them I was the new AVTEC director, like, oh, I love AVTEC. It's an
Everybody's
amazing
aware of how
place.
awesome it is. Yes.
And then our graduates are people who are working out in industry. They're working good jobs. I don't think AVTEC has done enough yet to engage its alumni. And so something that I want to try to do is to reach back out to our alumni and ask for, in some cases, like a small monetary donation. The part of the tricky situation with AVTEC is state budgets are tight. I don't think that's a mystery to anybody. And it's something that it's fair. The state budgets fluctuate, and we I think have to be more careful with how we spend state appropriated money. And I don't think it's wrong to look at somebody who had an education from an institution and reach out and say, hey, you're working in your professional career now and you're doing quite well. Would you think about or consider donating something to AVTEC as a part of a tax write-off potentially? And so that's something I'm looking to hopefully jump into and try to start cultivating maybe student scholarships or a support fund for AVTEC that when we have things that come up as far as
an endowment or something. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And I
Would working with the high school in
Well, I was going to say that was my other curveball. Have you met Ron Himstock?
I maybe in one of my first weeks, but the name doesn't ring.
Okay,
me.
so you're an
Oh, maybe.
outdoorsy guy. So yeah, so he's a bear combat veteran. He has personally battled bears, and he's the shop teacher.
And you got my
among
kid
other
interested
things. I mean,
in the job that
up
he's
at
doing
the
now.
high school. So he's got a couple things right
Yeah.
there. They're right,
Gets many kids interested in auto mechanics and everything else.
Yeah. So that's the local pipeline.
Yes.
In fact,
And-
we'll probably see him later on because he drives the bus that brings the drama kids
He
here.
does a lot of things. Yeah,
So
Probably keeps it running too.
yeah. Everybody does. Yeah.
my philosophy when it comes to working with K-12, and this is one of those things that I don't know how it will fit into the AVTEC world yet. Where I came from down south in Utah, we did a lot of really intentional work as a post-secondary training institution with our K-12 partners. We had, in some cases, faculty from the technical college working at the local high school. So a high school student would know the difference between a K-12 teacher and a technical college faculty. To the student, it was all CTE training, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm a believer that we as an institution, we need to be working to train students as young as was developmentally appropriate. I'm somebody who I think we should get out of the way of a motivated student and let that student do
I know
whatever
they've
they
taken
want to do.
17-year-olds before for different classes.
Yeah. And there's
18.
there's some policy that we need to try to sift through and ask the questions like what would this look like to have more of a pipeline of minor students coming in to AVTEC, or what can we maybe potentially look at as far as using the existing high school classes as a feeder into AVTEC, maybe by articulating some sort of credit. But all of that is it's conversation,
something to explore.
Something to
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
But it's something where a part of my perspective on student throughput is if we have a training partner, a school district that has a robust CTE program that does a lot of the training for some of the base level competencies, but AVTEC makes them duplicate those base level competencies, then there's maybe some inefficiency there that could be teased out. And so that's something I'm really curious to try to explore. And I'm super stoked about doing all of that work. I think AVTEC's poised right now to do some cool, maybe some slight changes to level up to the next spot.
Yeah, it sounds like a good conversation to have, at least with Mr. Brockman.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's comes out of the educational. That's his back one of his main background, as far as I know, and is teaching at school at K through 12. So he's got a lot of interest in the Kenai, specifically the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, but in school and funding school and opportunities for students in the K-12 domain. So yeah, something that could, all those things probably would be met with open ears there. So how are you doing here? You found a house? Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was going to ask that question too. What are you doing for housing?
I'm living in some AVTEC housing right now. So,
Oh, that's right. You guys have houses.
We have housing, which has been really super nice. That was actually really one of the critical things I think that allowed me and my wife to make the decision to jump up to Seward. So our plan, our hope, our dream is to find a place here in Seward at some point. And so we'll be looking for a place to stay long term and hopefully a place to buy at some point here in the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, but you're not uncomfortable. You're not in a van down by the river. Yeah.
No. But we
we
came from a boat situation where we were liveaboards in Juneau.
That's right. Yeah, you mentioned that.
And I loved every second of being a liveaboard. I actually would try to talk my wife into doing that again in Seward, but I think there's only got 18 months out of her.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's that. Okay. I was gonna say. Yeah. You gotta make allowances for
do you
other
have any
people.
kids?
2 puppy dogs.
2 puppy dogs. Okay.
Yeah. Our puppy dogs are our children. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you got a very optimistic and progressive attitude towards developing AVTEC further, and it's making me pretty excited about the future of AVTEC. Yeah.
Who do students call to find out about grants?
So if a student wants to find out about any type of financial aid or otherwise, as far as paying for their tuition, they just call the admissions phone number.
They'll put them in the right direction.
And they put them in the right direction. And the admissions phone number is right on the main website. So avtec.edu, it's down towards the bottom portion of the screen. But a big goal of mine is really to be really wise with how we spend state money and state resources, and support local industry. That's one of the great things about AVTEC is our accreditation ties us to filling local jobs in the state of Alaska. And I'm all about doing everything we can to continue doing that great work and find ways to do it maybe a little bit more efficiently without compromising rigor, because the last thing we want to do is to graduate somebody who they can't do the job when they graduate. And so I love this work. This is what the only thing I've ever known professionally. And so it's a great honor for me to be a part of AVTEC and a part of the Seward community. I've loved every second of my time here. As I mentioned earlier, the community's been fantastically welcoming, and I am stoked about being a part of Seward.
So when I'm hemming and hawing, it's because there's something I forgot, and
sure,
but I remembered it now, and that is so you settled into the C-suite there at AVTEC Central at the HQ, and you have the staff. What do you know? What's going on with the staff? You've got enough teachers. Are you
hiring anybody now?
Yeah, you hiring?
We always have jobs posted. Right now, we are trying. So the industrial electricity program, we are trying to expand that program, and so there is a recruitment out right now for an individual to teach in the industrial electricity program. And some of the positions are harder to fill because coming from industry to be a faculty member, a teacher, it's typically a pay cut. But I will say that the teaching lifestyle is a pretty nice teaching lifestyle, and that our faculty right now, they get summers off. And so they work about 200-ish days a year. The pay is not bad. And then the benefits and the time off is always a nice plus. And so all of our folks that we have on payroll and staff are all state employees. And so you also get the state benefits as well.
So do you have any summer classes now?
I don't believe we have any training taking place in the summertime. A part of what we're trying to do, especially this summer, we have a few capital projects, some big renovations that are taking place. And we need to focus on.
Yeah, I'll hit you up on that later. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk more.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We have to focus on some of those projects before we can have people back in the dorms and back in the training spaces. And so that's a big part of what we're trying to focus on this particular summer.
Also, I'm starting a program where if it's something that helps our infrastructure, year-round business, or like AVTEC, like if you're looking for a janitor or something that you feel you could possibly fill the position local, I say AVTEC is looking for a custodial, please call and who to call, and boom, move on to the next one. But that's a free a free service. So
That's
keep that in mind.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just trying to help our infrastructure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, a lot of things coming online. Sounds like you've got some ideas. So we look forward to your tenure here, and want to welcome you again, Cory Ortiz, Director of the AVTEC division. I never heard it referred to that way. I haven't spent any time in the office, so I haven't seen the memos and stuff. So I'm sure it would all sink in right away. But yeah, I want to say welcome, and we look forward to what you're going to do here with AVTEC.
One way AVTEC would have a foot in the door for hiring people is they used to have a job center in there. We had Norm. He was awesome. He would line you up with
Norm
jobs.
Norm Casagrande.
Yeah.
Not related to
he
Ritzy.
was funny because I went in there with my teenager, and he's having us fill out forms because I was going to get a real job and not run my own business and get health insurance and this and that. And so I didn't. I'm still here. But so he fills out one and he looks at his form. He says, "Son, that's your mom's email. You need to get your own email."
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up and take the rest of this to a sidebar or the after party or whatever. So this has been Sacktown Talk for March 25th, 2025 with Cory Ortiz, Director of AVTEC, and myself and Becky here in the studio at KIBH FM Seward Public Radio.
Okay, and on the YouTube.
And on the YouTube
Sacktown.
channel, yes, at Sacktown. I'm not sure if we're going to publish this one, but if we do that, what we just said will be relevant. Otherwise,
yes, we are.
I see. Okay, we'll see about that. We got to consult. We got to palaver, and we're going to go ahead and say au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen.
Any last words?
And
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks.
that was a good idea. Last words.
Yeah, last words.